Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1723 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Toronto's waterfront BIA. More than water. Toronto Maple Leafs baseball. Get your butts to Christie Pitts this summer for the best baseball in the city outside the dome. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Building Toronto's Skyline, a podcast and book from Nick Iones, sponsored by Fusion Corp Construction Management, Inc. And Redley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making his Toronto Mic debut, is Michael Mongiardi.
Hey, you pronounced it right.
Because I pretended I was Chef Boyardee. That's what I did there.
That's the trick.
You got a nice Irish name there, Mongiardi.
Thank you. Yeah, strong Irish name.
Good to see you.
Hey, quick thing here. I forgot to open. This is very unprofessional, and I'm a podcast guy. You know this. I didn't open the beer before we started, so do you mind if I just crack it right now?
Well, I didn't want you to open the beer before you started because I want to hear it on the mic. So
yeah, this
hold it up to the mic.
Great Lakes Brewery. I will say that.
Right in front, though.
Right in front.
Okay, there's the sound I like.
There's the sound.
That's a fresh can of the premium lager from Great Lakes Brewery.
Yeah, Great Lakes Brewery. Honestly, I know they're a sponsor, so this is going to sound like it's like I'm being a shill. But I'm honestly a fan of Great Lakes Brewery. Always have been. So,
do you think people will think you're just saying that, like
I don't know.
Because you're on Toronto Mic'd and this is the home of Great Lakes beer? I know you're a fan. I have met you at the brewery, which is like 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard. And I saw you, I'm excited to chat with you about this off the top, but I saw you at TMLX 19 just last Thursday night. That's 1 week ago today. We were together at Great Lakes Brewery for the 19th Toronto Mic listener experience. What did you think? I
thought it was great. I mean, as a casual listener of your show, but I'm also in your kind of community group, which, by the way, if you're
Why
listening...
only casual?
I mean, I have a lot. There's a lot of podcasts in my life, and I only have time for so much. But yeah. So, and I'm in your community as well on the secret community,
the FOTM WhatsApp group.
And it's very clear this community that you've built is like really cool people. Like I went in there, I didn't know anyone. I was alone, right? I knew Al Grego. I've met him before.
The cuddly one.
I love running into Al at every podcast event. He's like just a true mensch of a man. But I didn't know anyone else, literally all strangers. And I wandered in there and like immediately it was like, I felt like it was just like this community vibe. I felt like welcome. I'm the first person I met was that, Toronto historian that you have on often. Jeremy Hopkin, who was fascinating. We like chatted about old buildings and like cool stuff in Toronto immediately, just like right out of the gates. I was like, so anyway, I just think to be a little bit of a shill for you, Toronto Mike, I think you have built a really cool community of people. It's like supportive and positive and like, it just seems like it was like a very like family picnic vibes, like everyone just out having fun.
That's how it feels, Yeah. This is like a family picnic and snow is there. It's like if snow came to your family picnic, right? Like it's like, oh, we're having a good time. Here's some good FOTMs I've seen at other events and fellow listeners of Toronto Mike. And there is the guy who sang and wrote Informer.
The Informer himself. Yeah, I was too shy to ask him for
I would
have
introduced you. I would have brokered that deal.
Maybe
he would have been more than happy next time because he would have been more than happy to take a photo with Michael Mongiardi.
Yeah. Yeah. I can be an informer.
Well, that's going to get you beat up. Like, don't be an informer. I think if you listen to those lyrics, and they're difficult to parse, there's some patois going on there, etc. But the idea is he's going to beat your ass if you're an informer. Because Snow is not an informer. You know what I mean? He can hold the water.
So that's what the song's about.
Yeah, he's about going. Somebody ratted him out on something, and he's going to beat their ass in jail. Maybe I don't know. I could have that wrong. I'm going to ask Snow when he returns in September. But let me just say, Michael, it's great having you as a member of the community. Quickly, we're going to tell our origin story. Like, how did we come to meet? Do you remember reaching out and saying, "Hey, let's grab a coffee"?
Yeah, I've been aware of you for a long time. I'm in the podcast world. And you're in the podcast world, obviously, and we're both in Toronto.
Like the Toronto podcast zeitgeist?
Yeah, so I was like, I've always been aware of your existence, but honestly, and I was telling this to Al at the thing, is like, I don't know how I haven't been like listening before recently. Like I hadn't really heard of it. Like this is exactly my people. This is like the radio I listened to, the music I listened to when I was like in my formative years. Like this is your community, and it's like this is a perfect fit for me. I just didn't know about it, and if
that's
I did,
that's
I
it, right? Like there's so much noise. You alluded to it earlier, where you're like you got a lot of podcasts to listen to and stuff, and we're going to talk about what you're doing at the Sonar Network and how you're involved with podcasting. But like there's so much noise to cut through. There are people like you who are like dialed into the podcasting world of Toronto who've yet to discover what's been happening here since 2012.
Yeah. I don't know how that happened. I mean, the same thing with Humble and Fred.
Will it happen, Michael?
Humble and Fred, who you know, and I listened to them all the time on the radio in the 90s. And then apparently they've been doing a podcast for 13 years or something. I had no idea.
Yeah, they started before me. So 2011, I think October 2011, they started the current iteration of their podcast.
Yeah.
And I was there, Michael. Okay, so lots of stuff talking about, but the fact is you kind of reached out to have a coffee with me, and we met for coffee. And then, like, meanwhile, I had no idea that you were on Zooms with Humble and Fred. Do I have this story right? So I don't even realize you have a Humble and Fred connection, but you're on Zooms with Humble and Fred because Humble and Fred are talking about moving their podcast to the Sonar Network for January 2025. So this most recent January.
Which is an independent like podcast collective that I run, yeah.
That you run, like you founded the Sonar Network.
Yeah. Me and another guy, I guess you could say I co-founded.
Did you kill that guy?
He has passed away. He was gored to death by a rhino at the zoo. So may he rest in peace. No,
okay, I got to Google it. Did that happen?
He just backed away from the business, but he's still a podcaster. He's still on the network. We're still great friends. He's just not running the business anymore.
Okay, because sometimes these partnerships, there's some bad fallout. But you sounds like he just went to the zoo and got killed, and we miss him. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. Ridley Funeral Home, Michael, have sent over a measuring tape for you.
Oh, so I can measure all my corpses before I send them to Ridley.
Before you bury them in that backyard of yours. Who knows what's going on there? My goodness. Okay, so again, just trying to set this Humble and Fred table, and then we're going to dive into who you are, who the Sonar Network is, and then I want to have a chat about the state of Canadian podcasting and Toronto podcasting. We're going to have a great chat here. We're going to do it in an hour because I got to pick up my kids at camp. So
I'm
going to talk twice as fast as normally, which means you don't need to do twice the speed for this episode. Just listen at one time speed. But I'm meeting you for coffee. We're hitting it off. We have a lot in common. We're similar vintage. We're both in the podcast world. We're both producing podcasts. Of course, we have a lot in common. We have a great time because we're both sweethearts. And then I find out you're having Zoom meetings with Humble and Fred, but you actually don't know I'm associated with Humble and Fred because Humble and Fred just refer to their unnamed producer on these Zooms, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know. I knew they had a producer. I guess I might have even known his name was Mike, but
that's a very, very obscure, uncommon name. Like,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
That we both share.
Yeah, it was truly just a coincidence that that I met you around the same time as kind of starting to talk to them.
Which is wild. And you're talking to them, and I think you were like referred to them because of, I'm guessing it was FOTM Amanda Capito.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Amanda.
So like if you're like, I always joke on this show, all the pieces fit together, they all matter and everything. But like, so Amanda Capito's on this show talking about her book on podcasting. Then she reaches out to Humble and Fred, and I guess Howard and Amanda have a private Zoom. And then out of that private Zoom, Amanda introduces them to you at the Sonar Network. And this is all like, I'm actually not invited to any of these Zooms, but that's okay. I'm not bitter about that at all. Like, so behind the scenes, the fallout of all this is that Humble and Fred leave the server that they would co-locate from Ian Service, a name I drop on the show all the time. I still work with Ian. Hello to Ian. But Humble and Fred leave that for Acast, and become part of the Sonar Network. And that starts like January 6th, 2025 or something like that.
Yeah, January 6th, the great insurrection of the Sonar
Well, that's
Network.
how Ian refers to it.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, Ian, I think he's doing great work and he's kind of supporting this community. I think that's cool. I hope that he's not mad.
You know, he was. I was
Yeah.
going to introduce you at TMLX 19.
Oh, was he there? Yeah, I would love.
He
to
was
talk
supposed to
him,
be there.
yeah. Oh, okay.
An IT emergency arose and he couldn't make the trek from Guelph. But I had a whole plan to finally introduce you to Ian Service. But regardless, Humble and Fred, if you subscribe to their show today, it'll say the Sonar Network, and that is you.
That's it's not just me, but yeah, it's
It's
at
also
some
you.
point it comes up to me. Yeah.
That's like, okay, so you know who died? Another Michael died. Michael Madsen.
Michael Madsen died?
Yeah.
Oh no.
I know, and terrible. But just recently, somebody asked me on this very program, do you know Stephen Wright? They said. And I said, I am a huge Reservoir Dogs fan. I love that movie so much, seen it so many times. And Stephen Wright is the voice of that
The radio.
KBILL Super Sounds of the 70s or whatever. And then I learned Madsen died, and then I went back and I watched the Stuck in the Middle with You by Steelers Wheelers. I watched that scene. So I was just now thinking of a joke, a famous Stephen Wright joke, which is was it Stephen Wright? Who had the joke? It might not be Stephen Wright. Who had the joke where I used to be this, I still am, but I used to be too.
Mitch Hedberg.
Mitch Hedberg.
He was
not
like,
Stephen Wright.
I used to be addicted to drugs or something like that. I still am, but I used to be
Okay,
too. Yeah.
I apologize to the late great Mitch Hedberg. That was his joke, not Stephen. They have similar kind of one-liner delivery styles, but Hedberg, okay. Because then I was going to say, you're the Sonar Network. You're not only the Sonar Network, but you are the Sonar Network as well. So do you want to name check before we dive into who you are in the Sonar Network and talk podcasting? Do you want to name check who else is at the Sonar Network working with you
Behind
there?
the scenes?
Yeah.
Mariana Miniotis would be my main business partner and also my current sexual partner because we're engaged.
That's allowed at the Sonar Network.
Yeah, that's allowed. We're in love, but we also run this company together. But that's as far as the day-to-day business operations. It's mostly us two, and then there's a slew of other people, tech, IT people, social media, and then of course all the hosts of all the shows and the producers. So like the family is quite large, but at the top running the day-to-day
You and Mariana.
business, it's mostly us. Yeah.
And you're madly in love. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say.
You're sexually active. You're involved with each other on an intimate level.
Yeah. I sent you the videos.
Well, let's watch it together, everybody. the Toronto Mike YouTube channel. Okay, so now we know the two main, the heads of this Sonar Network beef. By the way, do you know this is the first Thursday of the quarter? It is. I'm just telling you it is. Okay,
Of your fiscal quarter or of the
Yeah.
calendar quarter?
Calendar quarter.
Okay.
But that means this is the slot that is occupied by Ed Keenan of the Toronto Star. He's always a 2 p.m. guest the first Thursday of the quarter. We've had this like locked and loaded forever. But he wrote me the other day and said, Mike, I'm out of town. Can we do this the next week? And we moved it 1 week. So Ed Keenan will be on Toronto Mike for his quarterly visit next week. But that opened up this Thursday afternoon, and you slid right in there, buddy. That's what you're doing here.
No, well, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to fill in Ed's shoes.
Well, those are big shoes. And
Big
and then we go, Ed and I go 2.5 hours or something, and we got 1 hour for this. But
Yeah.
your bio, I'm going to read it to you, and you're going to explain this first part particularly. It says, Michael Mongiardi is a comedian, podcaster, and co-founder of the Sonar Network. Can you explain the comedian part? Tell us what makes you a comedian.
Yeah, I guess it's an old bio, but I mean, I was very active in the comedy scene here in Toronto, kind of up to the pandemic, and like the network really was formed originally as like a comedy network of comedy podcasts. It's grown it still is comedy centric for sure, but it's kind of grown a little bit since then. But yeah, that's the comedian part. I mean, this is an old bio. I generally don't put comedian in it anymore. Yeah.
So be a bit more specific. Like, would you show up at the comedy bar or something, or do a set at Yuck Yucks? What do you mean comedian?
I was doing improv and sketch mostly, and I was doing a lot of improv. I was doing shows almost every day. I was doing I was teaching and coaching improv teams. I was active. I was very active when I was like starting this network at that time.
Okay, so at some point in this hour, there'll be evidence of your pure hilarity, your sense of humor.
I hope so.
It's all gone now. Okay, so you're a comedian, or at least you were, and you're a podcaster. So what came first, the Sonar Network or being a podcaster?
Podcaster, yeah. I had a show, improv show that I had started with some improv friends, and we ran it for like 10 years from like 2012, till,
That's recent 2024. If you did it 10 years from 2012, that means, 2022. Okay.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, this thing, rest in peace. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home.
Yeah. We need to set up an appointment with Ridley, but yeah, it never officially had its last episode. It kind of just fizzled out, and as my time got more busy with like running the network and stuff, I had less time, and then also like one of the co-hosts is like became a famous actor. So
who?
I wouldn't say famous, but
I'll be the judge of that. Who are we talking about?
His name is Sharjul Rasool. He's very funny. He was on Second City main stage for a long time, and now he's all over Canadian TV. You've seen him for sure.
Okay, well, I got to see a photo.
Yeah, he's also a great guy. But yeah, so he got really busy, especially with Second City at the time. I was busy running the network, and the show kind of fizzled.
Was that the goal for you prior to founding the Sonar Network or whatever? However it evolved, was the goal for you to find yourself on like a Kim's Convenience or something as the guy who visited the convenience store or something like that?
I guess
what does a Canadian actor aspire to do?
Yeah, I guess I was never really trying to be an actor. I did a few auditions, and I was like, this is not for me. I did a few auditions for commercials. I remember doing a McDonald's audition and being like, this game is just like, this is not for me.
And then Jason Agnew got the gig anyway.
Yeah. I don't have jackets like that.
Hey now. Only there's a period of time where Agnew was on every other ad. I think he had a big Tim Hortons one. He had a McDonald's. He was just going gangbusters with the ads for. You gotta make hay while the sun is out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now the Sonar Network, in a nutshell. Before we get into it, we're still getting to know you. What exactly does the Sonar Network do? Yeah,
so it's like, when we started the network, it was like, I was just a podcaster who had some friends in the local podcast community, like in Toronto, and we were just like seeing other cool networks, like cool communities pop up in other cities in the world at that time, like, mid 2010s. And we kept being like, oh, someone should do this. Someone should do this in Toronto, and then we could join it and we could be part of the community. Anyways, and it was just like saying that enough, and then no one actually started to do it. And then we were just like, I guess with no knowledge on how to run an entertainment business, maybe we should do it. So we just started it blind, having no idea what we were doing. And I still have no idea what I'm doing 8 years later, but at least I think I have a better idea now as I'm learning trial by fire as I go.
Well, one smart move, I think, is that you decided not to be the tech people, right? Like, so you're not, so we're, like we talked about Ian's service earlier, right? Like, so there's a technical aspect to what Ian's got to do, but you guys you're using Acast servers typically. Am I right?
Yeah,
so
yes.
That means Acast, they're looking out for their servers, so they're giving you a shout out to the Tragically Hip. They're giving you a place to happen, and then you guys can worry about the content and the creative.
Yeah, and I would say now in the landscape as it is now, no one really does their own hosting anymore. It's kind of going away, and because the Acast, obviously you pay them, but they do have a lot of extra services and features that they offer that if you were hosting it, you're on your own. Because I was hosting and writing XML feeds in Notepad at one point too in my life. But
nobody's doing that anymore.
Not really, except you.
I want to be the last person standing writing their own XML.
Yeah. There's another guy who I need to introduce you to named Scarborough Dude, he's a podcaster, very focused on Scarborough. And
sure.
He is like an interesting guy. He's like 70 plus years old, and he just closed the show down after 1,000 episodes. So you're way past him, but yeah.
Okay, and he's in his 70s? Okay, yeah. Just a kid.
Yeah,
but every time you say Scarborough, I want to say Birchmount Stadium, home of the Robbie.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude.
Okay, what neck of the woods did you grow up in?
I grew up in the great city, the home. Let's see if you can
okay,
guess.
Go.
Let's go. The home of where the great Ryan Gosling went to high school, and where the great band Finger 11, aka
That's Burlington.
Rainbow Butt Monkeys.
That was easy clue. I'm trying to think of where Ryan Gosling went to high school, but once you say Rainbow Butt Monkeys, I know you're in Burlington,
Yeah.
home of the Spoons.
That's right, the Spoons. I actually
and
talked to him.
Silverstein.
And Silverstein, yeah. And I talked to
Rob Pruce.
yes, Burlington Rob, right?
Burlington Rob.
Yeah, I talked to him at the party too. Again, another very welcoming, very fun, cool guy. So shout out to the community.
Well, Rob comes over every month, so he'll be back for Toast. We're tentatively looking at July 11th if you're a Toast head who needs to document that. But it all depends when, if Mrs. Bob Willett come out to play on a Friday night. So that's literally what we're waiting on right now. But you'd think the problem would be the guy who lives in New York.
Please let Bob come out to play.
Pretty much. Like I suggested that Rob Pruce talk to Mrs. Bob because no one says no to Rob. He's a sweetheart. He's just the nicest guy. So that's the goal there. Okay, so the sonar is up and going. Did you, other than Humble and Fred, did you want to name check a show or two or three that's on your network that you're proud of?
I mean, yeah, I'm kind of proud of everyone because it's very curated. We don't just let anyone in. We've turned down definitely like real opportunity to make money because it just wasn't a good fit. And it's like, but anyways, but some I will jump out as like fan favorites. One of them is Evil Men. Do you know Evil Men?
No.
It's Chris Locke, James Hartnett, Mike Blasio.
I know the name James Hartnett because my old Twitter days, I followed him. He was a good follow on Twitter. Yeah.
He's a great guy. All three of them are great guys. They're three very well-known kind of local comedians, Toronto comedians. They're great. And yeah, he should have a show called Evil Men.
Evil Men, okay.
Yeah, so I'll name check that. But yeah, I could, honestly, I like all of our shows, so I could.
Okay, there are two, so later in this chat, there are two shows, like upcoming shows I'm going to ask you for some more info on.
Sure.
That are part of the Sonar Network.
I think I know what they are.
You can probably guess. Okay, so but where I want to go next, well, actually, I'm going to thank a couple of partners, and then I'm going to get into it with you. There was a conversation that happened at TMLX 19 about the Humble and Fred show, and that's a good gateway into talking about what's different with Humble and Fred on the ACAST servers on the Sonar Network versus the previous 10 years, okay? There's a significant difference that you can hear, and we're going to get into that. But there's a new sponsor of Toronto Mic'd. So new sponsor alert.
New sponsor alert.
New sponsor alert. We need like a siren. I probably have one in the soundboard here, but that's cheesy, okay? That's cheesy. The Waterfront BIA. So you heard me say in the intro, more than just water. There's a whole whack of great summer events happening at the waterfront. And as you know, I bike everywhere, and I'm on the Martin Goodman Trail, and I'm biking to the waterfront all the time. Great Lakes has the GLB Brew Pub down there at Jarvis and Queens Quay. That's there. But I'm going to highlight an event that's happening July 4th to the 6th. So that's tomorrow, running this weekend. It's called the Fun Philippines Toronto Food and Music Festival. Rolls off the tongue. The Fun Philippines Toronto Food and Music Festival. This is where you can experience the vibrant heart of the Philippines by the waterfront. Enjoy live performances by Filipino artists, feast on authentic Filipino foods, and discover artisanal and indigenous-made craft exhibits. This is a perfect opportunity to explore new flavors and embrace traditions. Now you know what you got to do this weekend, Michael.
I mean, if the weather is hot, have you ever had the Filipino dish halo halo? Do you know that?
Can I tell you something? My wife is of Filipino descent. I know halo halo.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Yeah, I have a bunch of Filipino friends, and they introduced me to it, and it's so good, and it's perfect for a hot day.
Well, you know where you're going, the waterfront, for this fantastic food and music festival. You're drinking your Great Lakes. How is it? We already established you're a fan.
Half done. It's amazing.
Do you like Palma pasta? Did you get any at TMLX 19?
Dude, I went home like so full. I had lasagna, I had pasta, I had meatballs, and I was like, I went back up for a little bit more, and I was like, I didn't need seconds, but it was just so good.
Told you, I make sure we order a lot of food. So people come hungry and they eat till they're going to pass out. And that's the whole vibe, right? Just come enjoy delicious Italian food from Palma Pasta, have your beer, chat amongst some sweethearts. So thank you to Palma Pasta for feeding everybody at TMLX 19. We love the people at Palma Pasta. I do have in my freezer, Michael, a large meat lasagna, a beef lasagna from Palma Pasta. Would you like to take that home with you?
Sure. Are you gonna give me a pizza lasagna?
It's lasagna, yeah.
Thank you, man.
You didn't know. See, this tells me how much you listen. Every guest gets a lasagna.
You know,
so
I
don't
did
act
know
so
that.
surprised.
I did know that, but I was kind of like, he's not gonna give me one. Why do I
Yeah,
deserve?
well, you're a
lasagna?
guest, aren't you?
I am. I am,
No
yeah.
money is changing hands in this transaction, is there? Maybe we should talk about that. Okay. Have you been to Christie Pitts for a Toronto Maple Leafs baseball game?
I have not. But
Okay.
I heard that you are throwing the opening pitch. or
I did
something.
that. I threw a strike. My daughter took some great video footage of that. Snow is the official ambassador of Toronto Maple Leafs baseball. And this book here for you, Michael, is the history of Toronto Maple Leafs baseball. They play at Christie Pitts. Awesome experience. It's high quality, high caliber baseball. You grab yourself a lager, you get a hot dog, you sit on the hill, and you just soak it all in. This is a truly fantastic Toronto experience, and that ticket costs you nothing. Got it?
And it's just a great excuse to get out and do something in the
Christie
park.
and Bloor. Come
Yeah.
on, get to Christie Pitts this summer and catch some Toronto Maple Leafs baseball. Okay, at TMLX19. A couple of guys whose names I can't remember. It's killing me.
Yeah, I exchanged information with them, and then I put my notes through the washing machine, and so I was never able to follow up with them. But if you're out there,
If you're
hit
listening,
me up. Let's chat.
yeah, apparently they listen to Toronto Mike. So if guys, you know who I'm talking about. One of you had glasses. You looked like you could have been Arash Madani's brother. That's how I described this guy. One guy reminded me of Arash Madani a bit, the way he had the black-rimmed glasses. And his sidekick, okay? Who's Arash Madani's sidekick? But you two gentlemen, send me an email, mike@torontomike.com, and just say, hey, we were the two guys. So I witnessed those two guys talking to you, Michael, and I'm going to paraphrase, and then you're going to tell us exactly how it went down. But I sensed they were basically saying, you, Michael Mongiardi, have ruined the Humble and Fred show. They were complaining about the pre-rolls, the auto-inserted ads that you hear when you listen to Humble and Fred. And that's the big change I teased earlier. So moving to Acast means now there's like a pre-roll, there's a couple in the middle of the show, and then there's one like a post-roll at the end. You get a couple ads or whatever. So tell me what this conversation was about, and then we're going to get into this.
I mean, they just don't like dynamic ads, which is like, it's fine. It's like, I started in the podcast world in like 2009. So, I'd seen it come from like, just like, there weren't even any ads to like, to what it is now, which is like overrun by ads. So it's like, obviously there's a happy medium. They don't like dynamic ads. Fine. The fact is, in my perspective on it, is like, that's how creators are getting paid now, especially smaller creators. And so it's like, if you like these people and you want to support them and you want them to keep the show free, then it has to be ads. Otherwise, then you can pay them. There's usually ad-free avenues, Patreon or subscription things that a lot of podcasters have for support or whatever. But if you want the show to be free, then you just got to fast forward through some ads sometime.
This is the price you pay. Like the reason that you get ads during ER when you're watching on Thursday night. I just took a 90s reference for you, okay?
Sure.
But like, that's the price of this content.
It's not necessarily the price, right? It's like, some people podcast for fun and they have a job on the side or whatever, and they just podcast for their friends or whatever, and they're not really trying to make a big thing about it. They're not trying to monetize, and that's fine. That's okay. And that's a podcast, and that's totally legit and fine. And I have a lot of friends that do that, and that's great. But other people like want to be a creator, and they have fans that like them and support them. And so the price that you have to pay as a fan is literally nothing, except you have to fast forward through some ads sometimes. And so this is how creators get paid. And this is like, I think I was definitely getting heated in this conversation, but it's just,
it went on a long time because I left it and then it was still happening when I came back.
It's just such an entitled perspective for me for fans to be like, I love your show. I love what you do, but I want you to do it the way I want you to do it, and I don't want you to get paid as much as you could. And it's like, well, if you really like them, then you would just like suffer through some ads. Like TV has ads, like you said, ER, whatever.
But it's part of the problem specifically with regards to Humble and Fred, is that they did a decade of content where there were no dynamically inserted ads, and then all of a sudden in January 2025 there are like 4 different spots where the ads are dynamic. So is it just that they got used to it being one way for a decade and then it changed. So people don't like change.
Yeah, this is the thing, and it's like if you give something to someone, then they will appreciate it. But when you take something away, then they get mad. So and we all knew that it was like there's going to be some backlash. It's like, and I think they did kind of, get the listeners, informed, let them know it's coming and that kind of thing. But I asked Fred about it last time I met, and he said there really hasn't been that much.
No, like these two guys who were having the heated conversation with you did not send a note or something to Humble and Fred and complain. Like, so Humble and Fred, unless they listen to this episode, will be oblivious to the fact that there's these two guys who were at TMLX 19 who quote unquote who told me the dynamically inserted ads have ruined Humble and Fred. Okay. So they did not let the guys know about it.
And their opinion was also misinformed in a lot of way, but I don't know if I was able to articulate it properly because I was shouting at them. But I will say that that at the end of that conversation, as I was walking away, the guy, like we shook hands, everything was fine, even though it got a little heated.
Didn't come to fisticuffs.
No, it didn't. Not at TMLX. But as I was leaving, he was like, hey, I'm Amando Capito's cousin. That's what the guy said.
Oh my God. Well, that's a clue as to find out his identity.
Except guess what? Amanda Capito is one of my closest friends. So I messaged her on the way home and I was like, oh, I think I just got in an argument with your cousin. And she was like, who is he? What is it? And I was like, described him. And she was like, I don't have any cousin or second cousin that looks like that. So that's why I'm asking you what this guy's
thickens.
name.
I don't
this
remember his
guy's just
name.
like making up that he's my friend's
but
cousin.
That's such a rando thing to tie himself to Amanda Capito.
Maybe I misunderstood what he said or something. I don't know.
I mean, that's a name that doesn't sound like another name. And
No.
and that's okay. So that's a fascinating little tidbit. I had no idea about that. One thing, and again, I totally think these guys deserve to get paid with some dynamically inserted ad, which is a CPM deal, right? So they get paid X dollars per 1,000 downloads, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. But what they do, and I think these guys were okay when the ads were baked in. So if Humble and Fred, they'll start talking about Kelsey's or something, or Bodog, or a retirement, a guy who will help you with your investments for retirement, for example, right? And they would do the live reads during the show, and these guys seem fine with that. Their issue seems to be the pre-rolls. Like these are like literally pre-recorded ads that are just dropped in, just like you're watching ER on a Thursday night on NBC.
Or so mid-rolls, yeah.
Or yeah, I say pre-rolls as I'm using the term wrong. What is the overall umbrella term for these things? Just rolls?
Dynamic ad insertion. And then pre is the ones before the show, post is at the end, and mid's in the middle, yeah.
Okay, so I do know that, and then I forgot I knew that. Okay, so I feel like they felt they were suggesting that Humble and Fred were like double dipping because they were still doing the live reads, but
didn't
they also
do that? Didn't they? Sorry to interrupt. Didn't they do that on radio too? I'm sure they did, right? They did host read ads and.
I'd listen to them a lot in the 90s on CFY, and it would be like this sports brought to you by, and they would do something like that. Yeah, like brought to you by whatever, Labatt's. And then I feel like there was a lot of ad tags, but most of the ads I think on terrestrial radio were pre-recorded, inserts. Just pre-recorded ads. But they would anything that wasn't nailed down would get sponsored or whatever. Like, oh, it's Freddie P, the sports short, the sport comment brought to you by Labatt's Blue or whatever. But so just interesting to witness that. But you say this is the future of podcasting, right? This is how podcast creators are going to get paid.
It's the present, really. It's happening, and there's not a lot of this sentiment of ads are bad and inserted ads are bad is almost going away. I'm surprised I don't encounter these kind of arguments as much as I used to, because they're
going the way of the manually edited XML file.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm going to be the last man on both, okay? Take a note, though. I'm going to be the last man on both. Let me introduce another character to this conversation. So this gentleman was not at TMLX 19. He told me he had dental surgery and could not make TMLX 19. But he absolutely was at TMLX 17 at Palma's Kitchen in Mississauga. Alan Zweig. So to set the table, Alan did a season of a podcast with FOTM Katie Lohr as a co-host, producer person. But this was called The Worst Podcast. And this was part of Canada Land's double wing. Is it a wing? I don't know. I'm going to call it a wing.
Yeah,
but
yes.
so it's under the umbrella of Canada Land, a very famous podcast network Jesse Brown founded. And Double Double, we'll talk about specifically what it meant, but I think in a nutshell, they were trying to target Americans. I think this was an attempt to kind of break into the American market, whatnot. And Alan Zweig hosted the show, which was more of like a celebrity podcast where Alan would not know who he was going to talk to, but then there'd be a celebrity on the line, and then Alan would be his most Zweigiest and would have a conversation with this person. And that was the Worst Podcast. Is it true that the second season of the Worst Podcast is going to be a Sonar Network production?
We haven't announced it publicly.
Did I just announce it?
Anywhere.
I didn't know. You didn't tell me before.
No, I think it's okay. I think, you know what, if we're going to break the big news somewhere, I'm glad it's here.
Do I have a sound effect for that? Okay, probably. But are you telling me, because I feel like we had a little chat by the tree and everything, you would have said for sure, oh, we're not ready to announce that, because you must have known I was going to ask about Alan Zweig.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, we don't know any of the details about when it's coming out, but I will say that we're working on it. Sure, I can say we're working on it.
Is FOTM Katie Lore going to be a part of this?
The Worst Podcast is not the Worst Podcast without Katie Lore. And
it's only a very bad podcast, but with Katie, it's the worst podcast.
Yeah, I didn't mean it like that. I mean, like, she really is a key ingredient to why that podcast was so great. So, yeah, she's going to be back.
I think my last episode that was kind of podcast focused was Katie. So Katie will be back. And she was also at that TMLX 17 at Palma's Kitchen. We love Katie on this program here. Okay, so can I ask you, is the goal still, since now we've kind of opened the bag here, the cat is out of the bag. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So will the goal of the Worst Podcast season 2 continue to be to attract Americans? Like, is it still? I just found it interesting. I don't know how famous Alan is to Americans, but I feel like he's more famous to Canadians. But Alan Zweig, is the goal still to get Americans to listen?
Yeah, this is what I'll say is, okay, so you might be right. I don't know Canada Land's like business objectives. Like, was that the reason they did Double Double? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe they just wanted to broaden. I don't know. But the reason they came to us is because, like, they were like, we know journalism, we know like interviews and Canada stuff, and they're like, you guys are experts in comedy, so like, let's join forces on this. And so that's kind of what happened. So like, they came to us, I think, not specifically to reach Americans, but just because, we know comedy, and that we might be, if we join forces, we might kind of bring in both of our listeners from different sources and try to make the show even bigger and better than it was last season.
So is it a collab, as the kids would say? Like, is this going to be a Canada Land Sonar Network collaboration?
Yeah, co-production, I think they're calling it. But yeah, both of our logos will be on the art and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Has production began for season 2 of The Worst Podcast with Alan Zweig?
Pre-production.
Pre-production. So you've had meetings with Alan?
I've had meetings with Alan, yeah.
Okay, did you guys talk about me?
Yeah, you did come up. he
I'm a big Zweig head. I have to say this. I'm not apologizing for it. I think he's extremely talented and interesting. He's a very interesting Toronto character, and I am attracted to such.
Yeah, he is an interesting guy, and I think he was nervous about us at first, that we were going to change the show. We were going to come in, and we were just like, no, I mean, we just want to do another season of that show, And how long is a season in your podcast world? Well, the second season, I'm not sure. I can't tell. Not that I can't tell you. I don't know. How long was season 1? Season 1 was 6 episodes. Yeah. Okay. By that math, I'm on season 4,200. Oh, just kidding. Yeah. You're on season 1 still. This is a 2,000 episode. This is actually the season 1 finale. Next week, episode 1725 is start of season 2. It's tomorrow. Steve Simmons from the Toronto Sun. He'll be my first guest for season 2. That's actually not a bad idea. Just 1723. That's how many episodes per season. But okay, so people can look forward to that production. I know he did say on Toronto, I recorded from TMLX 17, so I had a live recording. Alan definitely, although Katie said it hadn't been made official, Alan definitely said the podcast was done. So it is exciting to me that it is not dead. It has been resurrected, and it is coming back. Yeah, that's exciting. We hope so. We're in the very early stages, but yeah.
Okay, so when you do pick, let's say it's 6 episodes, because the first one was 6 episodes. Will they be 6 people famous to Americans, or is it something you can't speak to yet? Like, I'm only asking because season 1 had Ron MacLean in there. Ron MacLean, a very famous Canadian to Canadians, essentially unknown to an American audience.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is just to get great guests, because the hook of the show that I think we didn't even mention is that, and if you know Alan from this show, you know that he's like a curmudgeon. He's kind of a grumpy guy.
Proudly so.
So yeah, and he's proudly, and he's great. He wrote a whole movie about curmudgeon. Yeah. So yeah, the show is about putting him in interviews with people, and that would kind of be a good pairing to a curmudgeonly kind of grumpy guy. So yeah, that's the goal. It's not like, obviously the more notoriety, the better. It's like, why would we cut off a certain part of the world if we can? But like, we're not going to get George Clooney as a guest. So, it's like, kind of getting the best guest we can.
Okay, no George Clooney, because you said that because I keep referencing ER.
Yeah, I guess you incepted that into my mind.
But now I'm thinking of handsome American stars. Okay, George Clooney is on the Mount Rushmore with Brad Pitt, who also in many a Tarantino movie, much like the late, great Michael Madsen. So, but now I'm thinking of another very handsome American, John Hamm, okay? Is there a podcast coming from the Sonar Network that has big names like John Hamm participating in it?
Yeah, how did you know that?
I'm reading it right here in the press release you gave me before you walked in.
Not sure I didn't give you one, but I have been talking about this show nonstop, so no surprise you knew about it. But yeah, we're releasing a show coming out July 29th of this month.
It's my daughter's 21st birthday.
Oh, wow, big birthday, big one. But yeah, it's a narrative comedy series written by Mike Sachs, and it stars John Hamm, Bobby Moynihan.
Well, he's funny.
Yeah, he's great. Ray Seahorn from Better Call Saul.
She's great.
John Waters.
I just watched the remake of Hairspray with my youngest yesterday. John Waters has a cameo early where he's walking on. I said, that's John Waters. And then I said, that's the guy from the Homer Sexual. The one, yeah, you know the episode. That's John Waters is so good in that episode of The Simpsons.
Yeah, and he's awesome in this show. Him and John Hamm are like kind of a duo. They like he's like kind of John.
So, but it's scripted. I just want to understand. So it's a scripted show, and you have major American celebrities reading the voices.
Yeah, and we have.
How do you get involved in that?
We've worked with Mike Sachs before, who's like Mike Sachs, well-known author in the comedy world. He wrote like Poking a Dead Frog, and Here's the Kicker. These interview books. But he's also written a lot of fiction, and we've worked with him before, and he just liked working with us. I think he said he refers to us. He says that we're like punk rock. He didn't like working with like networks that are like, going to give him lots of notes, and he's got to go through all this red tape. And for us, it's like we just wanted Mike to be able to make the show that he wanted in the show that he envisioned. Right. And that's why he, I think, went with us in the end. Yeah.
If you're punk rock, I'm fucking Stephen Leckie over here. I'm the Vile Tones. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's coming on my daughter's birthday. That's July 29th. People can hear this on the Sonar. What's the name of it again?
Stanland.
Yeah.
Subscribe. You can subscribe to it right now. Even there's a trailer out there.
There's a teaser. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to make sure I shouted out the Zweig connection, and then we did talk some Humble and Fred here. How's it going of Humble and Fred, by the way? You're now 6 months deep into your relationship with these two Toronto radio legends.
It's going great. Had a meeting with them the other day. We got some fun stuff that we're working on. But yeah, I think we're just cruising along. I know they have a live show that I want to go to next week. Yeah, Kelsey.
I got a note this morning from Fred saying, "Hey, we want a psychic at this show. Like, go book a psychic." And I'm thinking like Psychic Nikki from the '90s, but Psychic Nikki, they don't want Psychic Nikki. They want a new psychic. And I literally spent time this morning on the phone with psychics who could be at a Kelsey's in Burlington for an hour on a Sunday, and to feel who had the best sense of humor and vibe for the Humble and Fred show. I literally was doing that this morning for this event.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So if this guest is great, I get all the credit. If this guest sucks, it was a terrible idea, not my fault.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You got that?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure
I second that.
We're clear on that. Okay, 2 quick shout. I realize when I'm doing an hour, it's like a whole different ballgame here. Let's actually work. So I'm going to shout out recyclemyelectronics.ca because, Michael, I'm sure you have old cables, maybe old microphones, old laptops, just sitting in a drawer or a closet, or maybe you got a whole like suite for this. I don't know. But don't throw them in the garbage because those chemicals end up in our landfill. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, put in your postal code and find out where to drop it off to be properly recycled, okay?
Okay, yeah, that's good. I actually do have all kinds of that stuff, and it's literally just taking up space in my house. I'm never going to use it again.
Well, honestly, I'm not, sure, I'm paid to say it, but I mean it because I've done it. Recyclemyelectronics.ca, you'll see a place near you. It might be a Staples, who knows what it is. But then you just drop it off and it gets properly recycled and you got like a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling you'll get.
Yeah,
okay?
I'm in. I'm going to do it.
Okay, do that. Building Toronto's Skyline and Building Success are two podcast series from Nick Iones. He's from Fusion Corp Development, and he stepped up to help fuel the Real Talk. And we love Nick. We got a couple of episodes recording next Friday morning. I urge everybody to subscribe to these podcasts and also subscribe to Brad Jones from Ridley Funeral Home's fine podcast, Life's Undertaking. We recorded a new episode yesterday. Okay, Michael, why are you, by the way, a Michael and not a Mike?
I'm only a Michael because you've been calling me Michael.
But I see Michael it says Michael Mongiardi. I've never seen Mike Mongiardi.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I do write that.
Well, I'm not just, I would never like by default say Michael. Like it's everywhere I see, it's Michael.
Yeah, I truly don't have a preference. People always ask me. But yeah, in emails and stuff, like my signature says Michael, but like Mike is fine. Mike
but
is
all the
totally
bios,
fine.
like all the official Sonar Network bios say Michael Mongiardi.
Yeah,
like
maybe.
at some point, someone made a decision that your public facing name was going to be Michael.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but it was kind of accidental because people in my life call me Mike. Yeah,
Can I call you Mike?
absolutely.
No, I'm Mike. You got to be Michael.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
So now I want to spend the last 15 minutes here having a general chat about the state of Canadian podcasting. Like, what are your thoughts on the current state of Canadian podcasting? And what I mean by that is, by Canadian podcasters for Canadians. I'm tired of the Canadian podcasters targeting Americans. I would love to know how you think the industry is doing right now.
I think that so you were talking Canadians specifically.
Well, Canadians for Canadians is what I specifically am interested in.
Yeah, so I think the Canadian industry is a little bit sad. We're really eclipsed by the U.S. Podcast world, and I don't know how to get out of that. You know, it's like no matter how hard we try we're a Canadian network, Canadian shows. Most of our shows are hosted and produced by Canadians. Still, a huge majority of our listenership is coming from the U.S. It's just, their population is so much bigger than ours, and they have so much sway in the world stage.
Well, it's 10 times bigger than ours, but I'll bet you it's more than 10 times the listenership coming out of the States.
No, it's less than 10 times.
Okay.
Yeah, it's less than 10 times. But yeah, it is definitely 5 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I gotta ask you, so like you're so excited, and rightly so, that you have this scripted podcast by Mr. Sachs that is gonna have voices like John Hamm and Bobby Moynihan, and these are like very famous. This is like a Smartless crew, okay? Although one of the Smartless guys is Canadian, but might as well be American, okay? Yeah. But the fact that these are big American stars doing this scripted thing, the fact that it's you is kind of cool, but there is no Canadianity at play with that particular project.
Well, that's not true entirely.
Educate me.
All of these people above the line, these big stars, we didn't really have any say. Not that we wanted to. We love these people. The cast is incredible. But I made it. So we're producing and executive producing this show. So it was it was really important to me to get as many Canadian people in as we could. So a lot of the smaller parts, the people that like show up that are in a couple episodes or have like small arcs, not like the main cast. A lot of the supporting cast are Canadian comedians and actors in our like little sphere. So. And that was important to me to get as much Canadian representation as we could. Yeah.
Okay, we have handsome guys too, like Ryan Gosling you mentioned earlier. He's a handsome Canadian.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds. There's a couple. There's a lot of handsome. I think that we we punch above our weight when it comes to handsome guys. Look at us two.
We got Mike Boone. Yeah.
Who the fuck is this Nick Boone? You're
You know
telling me
Toronto
so handsome. Nick, I know Nick Iones is a handsome guy. I don't blame you for confusing us. It's funny. I swear to you, I thought I turned off my ringer. Like, I thought I did it.
Oh,
but
I'm not even hearing it.
No, but I know, but I am, and I just glanced on this watch here, and it's Nick Iones. I think he knows we're talking about him.
Yeah.
Quick, you mentioned Jeremy Hopkin. He's watching us live at live.torontomike.com.
Hey,
he says
Jeremy.
it was his pleasure to meet you at TMLX 19.
Honestly, really genuinely nice guy. You know, you just like, and I'm like, if you're listening to this right now and you're like in the Toronto Mike ecosystem and you've always been like, yeah, I'd love to go to one of those things, but like I'm shy or whatever, like just go. Honestly, I was like nervous to go. I'm like a nervous kind of guy, especially in groups of people I don't know.
But you were a comedian.
Yeah, I know. I mean, on
An
stage
improv
is
comedian.
different. On stage is very different than being in crowds, but it was like so welcoming. And if you're thinking about going, just go. You'll have fun. And it was, delightful to meet him and just chat about like Toronto for a few minutes. Yeah, it's cool.
Also, J-Ho, I'm just reading what he wrote here. I prefer the way Toronto Mike organically places ads, sometimes in a funny way. So thank you, Jeremy Hopkin, because that is how I'm currently rolling. But who knows? Maybe after this chat with Michael, tomorrow with Steve Simmons, it's going to be a pre-roll, a mid-roll, maybe a few mid-rolls, depending on how long I go, a post-roll. We might be rolling. Shout out to Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit.
Rest in peace, Fred Durst.
He's not dead.
Well, not
What are you
yet.
saying? Check what time it is?
Yeah, check your time. Check your
Fred
watch.
Durst, as no shout out to Ridley Funeral Home required. That red hat, he was rocking the douchey red hat before it was popular to rock the douchey red hat.
Yeah.
Give him some credit there. He was ahead of the curve on that one. Hey, so I'm specifically, Michael, since you live and breathe the podcasting world like I do. Although I don't work with John Hamm. I don't work with John Hamm. I work with Ralph Benmergui. That's the difference. My handsome Canadian guy is Ralph Benmergui. Can you please speak to the being an independent podcaster? I'm always interested because there are networks. We mentioned Canada Land, right? There's big networks like CBC, for example, which seems to do a lot of work in the podcasting space. So if we remove these big networks, I know Chorus has a network, Curious Cast, is that what it's called, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where you would hear like the ongoing history of new music, etc. Shout out to FOTM Robbie J. What's it like for an independent podcaster in this country who wants to make money as a podcaster?
I mean, making money.
Kill yourself now, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, is not easy.
Give up your dreams.
Yeah, it's hard and it's a grind, especially if you're going for ad revenue. But it's just like, build the following, start a show, and if you go get into it, not being like this is going to be my career. If you get into it because you love doing it, like when you started podcasting, I'm sure you didn't have the goal to have all these sponsors and make it your job. You were just like, I have fun doing this and I want to talk to cool people. Like that's the right attitude. And if you start with that attitude, that's your best chance for success. If you start being like, I want to make money, it's not going to go well.
But if you had a great idea for a podcast and you wanted to make money on it, I understand what you're saying, which is absolutely correct. It's tough sledding for an independent podcaster. But would you recommend seeking out a network, like being part of a network? And I know you bring an inherent bias to this question, but what is the value of a network versus rolling your own? Yeah,
I mean, every network is different and they have different, they operate differently and different way that they generate revenue and stuff. But like in general, I would say, look for a network. I mean, you're never committed to a network forever. You can try it out, see if you make some money or whatever. The good thing about being on a network is you have someone looking out for you, kind of trying to get you some ads. They're trying to get you build your following. Like we do all kinds of stuff behind the scenes that our shows don't even know about. Like we're doing ad swaps. We're like trading ads for our shows with other networks and other shows just to try to raise their following, to grow their shows. And like, I guess you can do all that yourself. But it's also nice to, focus on the art and making good work and like let the networks it's also not easy to find the network. Pitching to a network I can say,
unless you're John Hamm.
Yeah. We're not like,
or Alan Zweig.
Yeah. We're not the biggest network in Canada. That's for sure. But I can say that I'm getting pitches probably almost every day. Yeah, from other shows. So there's lots of shows out there. It's hard to pitch, and And you know what? If you reach out to me personally, even if you want to just be like, I want to pitch to other networks, not even yours, can you give me some tips? I'm always there to help people, like trying to start their podcast journey or whatever. I met someone really cool at your event, by the way. A guy
Somebody
named
cool came to my event?
Yeah, a guy named Stephen Popick.
Yes, so I actually was on his podcast, and I made the remark, which was true, is that it's the first in-person podcast recording invitation I received since COVID.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's 5 years, right? So in the past 5 years, people asking me to record in person. Now, there's a caveat to this. I do have an open invitation to be on the show is called No Sleep Till Sudbury is the name of the show. And he records in, I believe it's Whitby. Oshawa, I think it's Whitby. So there is an invitation to record in person in Whitby. But I mean, in terms of something I could bike to, so something I could like bike to, this guy was recording like in Bloor West Village. And it was an easy little bike ride. And I sat down with him and had a nice little chat with him. And I remember thinking, oh, this is how podcasting should be done in person. And then I remember that's how I do it, Michael.
That's right.
In person. What do you think of this, especially since COVID, this huge switch where I think the default setting for most podcasters now, including Humble and Fred, is to just use some piece of software and meet remotely?
Yeah, I will say it's a shame. Before COVID, I would have said remote is like out of the question. You have to be in the same room. It's just not as good, which is still true. But I think COVID forced us into a situation where we had to learn how to do that. And so like in editing and post-production, in like the software has gotten better, like Riversides and Zencasters of the world.
Yeah, but you're still not in the same room.
There's still
the
an energy
is still different.
There's still an energy that's missing. There's still like this dynamic and banter of being in the same room that you can never fake. So it's always better. But I think it's made it a little bit easier to like, if you want to have a episode with someone that's in like Germany, it's like now you can do it. It's just, not as good as sitting in the...
If I want mid-year on my show and he's overseas, now I can make that happen. But, you always could. I always had that in my back pocket for the people I knew were never going to be in Toronto.
Yeah.
But for all, it's just, now it's strange. Like you'll have somebody who's maybe, 5 kilometers away, and you're going to do it on, like you said, Riverside or Zencast, or you'll be on Zoom or whatever. And I just think it is a damn shame.
Don't do it on Zoom, though. Zoom doesn't work.
Humble and Fred do it on Zoom.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to talk with
that's
them.
Going to be the next note on those meetings. I never get invited to those. I'm not even like, I say, okay, that's fine. They don't want me in these meetings. How come the producer of Humble and Fred does not get invited to these meetings that are happening with the Sonar Network and Humble and Fred?
I don't know. I mean, we don't have a lot of meetings. It
sounded like you were meeting every week. I had some FOMO there.
I met with them like once recently, but it's been a while since. I mean, Fred does call me every once in a while when there's some issue with like
money,
something, not like issue with money, but like there was like some invoicing thing. And so every once in a while I'll get a message from him, but that's just like, oh, quick little fix. And then, then we move on. But as far as meetings go, I don't think we did have one recently, but that was it. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'll need to read the minutes of that after this recording here. Okay. So maybe on our wind down here. So I feel almost like that's a disheartening message, though, to leave people with, considering I've done it. So it's not like I don't know anyone who's done it. But if you are an independent podcaster who's got passion in the belly and willing to like hone their craft, work on their craft and put in their reps and get better, I don't want to like leave people with this message like don't even think about monetizing, because
no.
I mean we don't, even Humble and Fred, like they were independent and they make an adult wage, and I've got paying sponsors on the program. I've got a lasagna in my freezer for you. You're going home with some fresh craft beer from Great Lakes. You got a measuring tape from Ridley Funeral Home and a book on the Maple Leafs history.
This is mine?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Didn't I give it to you? Okay, well,
right, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. That book is yours, okay? I don't want to see it on eBay tonight or anything like that, okay, Michael? But it's tough, because cutting through the noise of over 1 million podcasts, it's tough. But I still think cream will rise, even if it might take 12 years for somebody like Michael Mongiardi, who's in your wheelhouse, to discover you exist.
I agree. Cream will rise. It's just, I think you have to let it. You have to slowly build your audience over time.
That's the thing, though. People want us right away, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. It's a slow burn. You really have to be patient when you're building, because you're not just building this show because you're not a famous person. Like John Hamm can launch a show and a bunch of people on day one they're interested. You've got their attention because they loved Mad Men or whatever, right? But for regular people like you and I and the regular Joes out there, it's a slow burn. You have to be patient. You have to put in the time. You have to put in the reps.
Yeah. And people think that, they start a show and they want it to blow up and stuff. And it's like, it doesn't really happen like that. You really need to, if I can just pull everyone down to earth, if you're thinking about starting a podcast, and just start because, like I said, because you like it, because you want to do something fun, right. and plan to be doing it for a few years before you really start seeing money. And then you'll be okay.
Okay, and ideally invent a time machine and go back and do it 15 years ago.
Yeah, that helps too.
Yeah. I always think, that's the real conversation I have with myself on a bike ride will be, okay, would I do what I did if I started now? I don't think so. I really think it was 2012 when I started Toronto Mike, and I really think it was just ahead of everyone and their uncle thinking they could be a podcaster.
Yeah. There is that. The market is so saturated right now, and it's even harder for cream to rise. But like you said, it's just more time. Time will rise to the top. But yeah, the market is really cluttered with stuff right now.
And more reason, Michael, I know I said I call you Mike, but whatever. Michael, more reason to support your favorite local independent podcaster. If you do like what you hear and you realize, there's no network behind this guy. This isn't a CBC show or a Canada Land show or a Curious Cast show or whatever. It really is important if they have a Patreon, become a patron. Let them know by liking and reviewing and say, hey, this is a great show. I enjoyed this conversation. If they have live events, I've had 19 of these. There'll be a 20th in September probably. If you can geographically make an appearance and just show the love, show the support. And if they have sponsors, and I'm not talking, that's the difference I think between these dynamic roles and the actual live reads, is that when I do a live read for Palma Pasta, well, you can hear the end of Toast recorded last Thursday where we phoned Anthony Petrucci from Palma Pasta live on the recording to ask what food will be at TMLX 19. We did that live, right? And that's the relationship. I was at Great Lakes Brewery. They were hosting us for that day, and Troy was there because I think he won't admit it, but I think he wanted to see snow. I don't know. But my point is that let the sponsors know you're buying there and you're spending money there because they support Toronto Mike. I mean, any independent podcast, okay?
And I don't know, I'll add to that too, Mike. Do you
add to it, Michael?
Do you have promo codes? Do your brands sponsor you with codes to use?
Some have, but currently there are no promo codes.
Okay, well, if there are, always use the codes. Don't forget to use the codes. Right. Use the code for the creator who sent you there, because that's how they get credit. That's how they get kickback, or that's how they just get recognized for having driven people over to the brand. So yeah. Okay,
so be great. So on our way out here, you've been amazing, Michael. You're now officially an FOTM.
Oh, it's an honor.
Although I think when you show up at a Toronto Mike listener experience, you get the status at that moment. But now the world knows about it. So you're here. We're kind of in business together because I produce a show that's on your network. So we're, already kind of in business together.
Yep.
I took notes here. Things I do wrong. Okay. And then you can tell me what to add to this list on our way out. I'm still writing my own XML. Okay. Literally, it's like Notepad. It's whatever the one that comes with Apple or whatever, TextPad or whatever the hell they call this thing. Text edit, right? So I will, after this recording, I will make a little amendment and edit to the XML file and then publish it over top the old one, and that will push this episode to the subscribers and everybody. So I still write my own XML. Nobody seems to be doing that anymore, but I did start doing that in 2006 when we started Humble and Fred one-off podcasts in December 2006. Also, I don't have any dynamic ad insertions. I understand I am leaving many, many thousands of dollars on the table. Is that fair to say, Michael? I could be a rich man, but instead I don't do that. So those are two things. Anything else we should throw in the pile of things I'm not quite doing properly?
No, I think everything else you're doing perfectly.
Everything else?
Yeah.
All right, so you don't need to write your own XML, Mike, because there are things although I actually like working with Ian Service and writing my own XML, so I might not listen to you on that one. And the dynamic ad insertions, Nick Iones wants me to do this too. I need to meditate on this. I've been meditating on it for 6 months. I might need another 6 months on this one, but whatever I end up doing, I will pick that big brain of yours.
Anytime.
We'll meet for another super coffee in Mount Dennis.
Yeah.
Maybe a Great Lakes beer at the brewery.
Oh, yeah. Anytime, man.
Michael, I think you've earned the moniker FOTM Mike. I'm now granting you Mike privileges.
Oh, my God. I'm a Mike. I'm finally a Mike. My dreams have finally come true.
And shout out to Ellen Zweig. When he launches season 2 of this podcast, urge him to come back on Toronto Mike.
Force him to come back at gunpoint.
And he's launching another show with a different network.
Yeah, we don't talk about that one.
We don't talk about Bruno. And that brings us to the end of our 1,723rd show. Note to future Mike.
Me?
Me.
Oh.
Come on, you're. Oh, I guess you're also future Mike. But note to future Mike. OBS is telling me I need to know this for later. Encoding overloaded. Consider turning down the video settings or using a faster encoding preset. I actually never had this issue till last week, and now it's popping up periodically, and it's creating this frame rate issue with the live stream, and it's bothering me, and I need to fix it. So this is a note to future Mike. Troubleshoot this issue with OBS. Maybe Ian will help you if you need another big brain to pick right there. Much love to all who made this possible. That is Great Lakes Brewery. Don't forget your beer, Michael. Palma Pasta. It's in my freezer. Don't leave without your large beef lasagna. Toronto's Waterfront BIA. Throughout the summer, I'll be shouting out different events happening at the waterfront. This Fun Philippines Toronto Food and Music Festival sounds amazing. I got a couple of children who are half Filipino. I feel like it'll be good to help them get in touch with their roots. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. I know you're already going there. Toronto Maple Leafs Baseball. Christy Pitts, everybody. Best value in town. Building Toronto's Skyline with Nick Iones and Ridley Funeral Home. Listen to yesterday's episode of Life's Undertaking with Brad Jones and I. See you all tomorrow. My special guest is Steve Simmons of the Toronto Sun. If you have any questions whatsoever for Steve Simmons, you still have a little time. Get them to Mike at torontomike.com.
Me?
You're from, what's the town you're from again? Burlington? You're Burlington Mike, okay? You're Burlington Mike. Peace and love to everybody. See you tomorrow.